Hi, this is Michael Buffer, and welcome to the BoxHard Podcast.
Hello, everyone. This is Mikey Garcia.
It's the monster from the swamps, Regis Rougarou Prograis.
Hey, what's up? This is King Carlos Molina, former IBF world champ.
This is Michael, the Bounty Hunter, 2012 Olympian and your people's champ.
This is Charlie Edwards, flyweight champion of the world.
This is Fast Eddie Chambers, and you're listening to the BoxHard Podcast with my main man, Ekow Essuman.
Hello everybody and welcome to episode 379 of the BoxHard Podcast. I'm your host Ekow Essuman. I'm joined as ever by former heavyweight world title challenger, my good man Mr. Fast Eddie Chambers. Eddie, how you doing this week, my man?
I'm doing great, my man. How about you?
You was going to say good and then it changed to great. What happened there?
I don't know, man. I just feel great right now.
You remembered who you were speaking to. That was the answer you were looking for.
That's right, 100%. Always great when speaking with you, sir. That's how it's going.
There we go. Same back at you, Eddie. We're going to dive straight into the review part of the show. 3 cards to go over in the review part. Won't take too long, though, I don't think. The first one took place at the Bruce Convention Center in Hopkinsville, Kentucky, USA. Whenever I hear of Kentucky, of course, I always think of Muhammad Ali being from Louisville. I used to do a good Ali impression back in the day. I don't think I'm going to attempt that this week, but yeah. Kentucky is the place, and that was where the boxing was this weekend. Friend of the show, Tyler Tomlin, he is still with Lou DiBella. He picked up a win here, a unanimous decision for him. He's now 14-1. It was over 8 rounds there at welterweight against Gustavo Vittori, now 27-13 with a draw. Moving out now to this one here. It took place at the Turning Stone Resort and Casino in Verona, New York, USA. It was live on ESPN. It was live on Sky Sports here in the UK. Going to start with the undercard. Guido Vianello, the Italian heavyweight, now 10-1 with a draw. He loses his undefeated record at least. He was TKO'd in round 7 by Jonathan Rice. Jonathan Rice now 16-6 with a draw. It was a cut. The doctor stopped the fight in round 7. It was a competitive fight while it lasted. I think Vianello was probably ahead on the score. In fact, he was ahead on the scorecards. I think he was clearly winning the fight, but it was competitive. Rice was very much in the fight. Rice hit Vianello over his left eye, and it reopened an old cut that Vianello suffered earlier on in his career, and it was right above the eye. Like I said, the doctor stopped it on the cut. It was a shame, really, for Vianello to lose his O in that fashion, because, yeah, the fight was a 50-50 on paper. It was a close fight, like I say. I say it was close. It was competitive. I think Vianello was winning, like I say, but it was competitive. It certainly was far from over, and Rice still had a big chance in the fight. But it was a shame to see it end like that. Happy, of course, for Jonathan Rice. Again, takes another O away from a prospect. What else did we have? Let's go with the other undercard fight. Another 50-50 on paper, to be honest with you. Adam Lopez, now 16-4. He lost a unanimous decision over 10 rounds to Abraham Nova, now 22-1. Abraham Nova, a big puncher. I always felt the fight would go the distance. It did go the distance, but I wasn't too sure when Adam Lopez went down in round 5, and he also went down again in round 6. And then late on in the fight, in the final round, in the dying seconds, Lopez seemed to hurt Abraham Nova really badly. I think Nova was also hurt earlier on in the fight, but it was quite a good scrap, to be honest with you. There were exciting moments when both men were rocked and hurt, and yeah, Lopez, like I say, down round 5 and 6. But yeah, for major parts of the fight, both men were just trading leather in the center of the ring. Lopez was the slight favourite going in with the bookies, but yeah, Nova gets the win on points, so a slight upset there in the eyes of the bookies. And we're going to move now to the main event. Efe Ajagba now 17-1. Stefan Shaw now 18-1. He loses his he is a Lou DiBella fighter as well. Lou, really thought this was his time to shine for Stefan Shaw. I actually hadn't seen Shaw before, but, knowing he was with Lou DiBella, I thought, okay, he's going to be quite decent. Like I say, Lou did a few interviews before the fight, I believe, bigging him up, saying that this is going to be it and he's going to prove to the world, that he's a good fighter and stuff like that. He looked much smaller than Ajagba at the weigh-in, and I couldn't really understand why Ajagba was the underdog in the fight. Because from what I know of Ajagba, I think Ajagba's good, even though a lot of people like to discredit him and, say he's overhyped and stuff. I actually think Ajagba is a good heavyweight. But I hadn't seen anything of Stefan Shaw, so I was wondering if maybe, I don't know, there's talk of sparring sessions or something. I don't understand how he could have been the favourite in the fight. I just couldn't understand that myself. But like I say, sometimes, just because you can't understand them doesn't mean that they're not right, and he was the favourite. So I thought, okay, but I did fancy Ajagba. Like I say, I think I said it on last week's show, and early on I did like what I saw from Shaw. A really good fast jab. He was shooting his jab out real quick. There was power on it. Ajagba was taking a lot of the jabs straight in the face, but I also liked Ajagba's jabs as well. Bit of a tongue twister there. Ajagba's jabs, particularly when he would throw one to the body of Shaw early on. And Shaw also displayed good footwork for a bigger guy. I felt it was quite an intriguing contest early on, but as the fight went on, Shaw just became lazy, and he didn't look particularly tired. And that's what I kind of always get confused with, when a guy doesn't really look that tired, but they're being lazy. They're fighting as if they're tired, but they don't look tired at all. It's a hard one to try to explain if you didn't watch the fight, but he kind of went into like sparring partner mentality. That's what it seemed like, to me. And he just reminded me, his attitude, his style. It reminded me of Kevin Kingpin Johnson. It was like Kevin Kingpin Johnson 2.0 or whatever. Like I say, he had a good start to the fight, Stefan Shaw, in the early part of the fight, maybe round 1, 2, 3, that kind of area. But like I say, after that, it was difficult to give him many rounds. The crowd were booing a few times throughout the contest, and yeah, I think it was a fight really to forget in a flash. It was more like a sparring session. But Efe Ajagba did what he had to do and passed the test, and Stefan Shaw can be quite disappointed, I think, because I think he had all the tools, man. He had the skills, like I say, really liked his footwork, really liked his jab, but as the fight wore on, he just decided to get lazy, and yeah, he's blown his chance. If that is his sole chance, then he's blown his chance, unfortunately. But like I say, credit to Efe Ajagba, slight underdog with the bookies, nice win there for everyone. And yeah, I mean, on to the next one for him, really. I think there's still some big fights to be made for him. I'd like to see him in with one of the more kind of bigger named American heavyweights that I think he could possibly beat. Like, for example, I'd love to see him in with someone like a Gerald Washington. I think that's a great fight. Anyway, that's it for that one. Moving out to the final card to review. This one took place at the Good City Brewing in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, USA. Over here, friend of the show, former world champion Mary McGee, now 28-4. She had her opponent retire on her stall at the end of round 4 of a scheduled 6-rounder. Her opponent, Dahiana Santana, now 40-14. Okay, there we go. That's it, though, for the review part of the show. Flown through that myself there. The final thing for me to do in this part is to welcome this week's special guest. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the world-ranked welterweight contender. It is, of course, Mr. Michael Mckinson. Mikey, welcome back on the show, my man.
How you doing, mate? Good to be back on.
Always good when speaking with you, Mikey. Doing very well, thanks. So we last spoke back in July. It was a few weeks before the Vergil Ortiz fight. Let's start with that. Obviously, you took Ortiz into round 9, further than anyone had managed to do. At times, you stood with him in the centre of the ring and were happy to trade with him. Those tactics, I think, shocked a lot of people. You know, what's this guy doing trading with Ortiz? He's only got 2 KOs on his record, I see some people say. But it worked. You did get the better of a lot of the exchanges. I know you're a very proud man, Mikey, but can you take any moral victory in the defeat?
I can't be proud of a loss at all, but there's a lot to gain from it. You know, round 1, I did come out. I won the first round, earned his respect. Traded a little bit as well and stuff like that. And like obviously, things were going okay. The plan was to get through the first 6 because he's obviously going to start fast. I got through the first 6 and won a round. Then I won round 7 on 2 of the judges' scorecards, I think. So things were going okay. I was winning rounds, down on the cards, but in round 8, he hit that hard. He hit me on the hip bone and literally all the ligaments gave in on my hip bone, and after that I was kind of defenseless. Went back to the corner after round 8. Said to my dad, he could have pulled me out on my stool, but I, like you just said, I'm a very proud man, so I got up and carried on. And because before that there was never a time in the fight I thought I was going to be stopped at all, you know. But you know, I came to the ring with a lot of boos and I left with cheers and things like that, and a lot of respect over there. In fact, I'm probably more respected in the States than I am over here for whatever reason. So I can never be proud of a loss, but there's a lot to take from that. The experiences that I've had this year fighting in the States twice, headlining against Vergil Ortiz and stuff like that is only going to benefit me going forward in myself and my career.
Yeah, no, 100%. And yeah, like I very, very rarely, in fact, yeah, very rarely have seen you not in control of a fight. And even though obviously you went in with Ortiz, he wanted to get you out early, of course he did, he didn't. So in some respect I even feel like you were in control early on, and then obviously, as you say, the game plan was to come on strong later on, and you did rack up a bunch of rounds. I thought your counter punching was excellent. Your jab was probably the best I've ever seen it. You kept smashing it straight through his guard. But yeah, his power, as you say, it kind of caught up with you in the end. I know you touched on it just briefly, but what was that power like, maybe in comparison with other punches you've taken in the past from other guys?
Do you know what? I proved to the world, because before then, nobody knew I had a good chin. Nobody knew that I had a big heart. So I showed a lot about myself and proved to people I've got a great chin, I've got a big heart, and things like that. You know, this is a guy that's tipped for superstardom, that has got a 100% knockout record. But like I said just a minute ago, I was taking his headshots, I was taking his body shots. It wasn't until he caught me on it wasn't an illegal shot or anything like that. It's just unfortunate. It was my hip bone. It was really unfortunate. After that, then I couldn't do anything. I couldn't put any weight onto my right leg. I couldn't throw my right hand. So towards the end of round 8, when it happened, and then the rest of round 9, I could only circle to the left. That's why I was limping as well. So it was just unfortunate. Like, I'm not saying without the hip bone I would have gone and shoot the well and beat him, because I was down on the cards at the time. I think I was 5-2 or 6-2 down on the cards, but there wasn't a point I thought I was going to get stopped until then. But you know what? I hope Vergil, him and his team are unbelievable people, very, very humble, genuine guys. So I'm rooting for him. Hopefully he goes on, wins a world title and in multiple weight classes, because then that defeat isn't as bad.
Yeah, it'll age good. But no, is he the hardest puncher you've been in with, Mikey?
Of course, by a long... Yeah. Because I've never ever... There's never been a time I've looked shaky. There's never been a time of people... I don't rarely get hit, do you know what I mean? So it's definitely... But it's not just his power. It's his timing. He's got a good boxing ability too. His velocity, his pace, his size. There's more to it than just his one-punch power. Like, I've probably sparred bigger one-punch hitters than Vergil Ortiz, but it's everything combined which makes him what he is. He's a great young fighter, and like I said, I'll be rooting for him on his way to winning world titles now.
Yeah, no, fair enough. And you did close out the year on a positive by outpointing Roberto Arriaza. A couple words on that one. Thank God we did get to see it on TV in the end.
Yeah, so obviously the two fights in the States this year have kind of been life-changing for me. My bank account, like everything about me is like gained from it. I didn't need to fight soon after, really. I could still be chilling out, relaxing and enjoying life. But for me, this is my best year in boxing. I couldn't end it on a loss. I couldn't. So there was a big show happening just before Christmas on the South Coast. I pushed to be on it. For little money. But the opponent, right, I got offered a guy with 8 wins and 30 losses. And I said, no, let me have the dangerous opponent. So yeah, I fought Roberto Arriaza for the same money I was going to get for fighting a journeyman. But like I said, I'm a very proud guy, and I'm the guy that's just headlined in America, and I want to get back to that sort of level. So there was never a chance I was going to ever fight somebody with a losing record. So I fought Roberto Arriaza, who I think it was 19 wins, 4 losses, but 14 KOs. He came in 5 pounds overweight. Nothing was on my side that week, on fight week. Nothing. But, you know, I'm a world-class fighter, so we made no excuses, and we got the job done no matter what the circumstances.
And you do have a fight penciled in already for this year, am I right in saying, in Italy?
Yeah, so in the meantime, obviously, we want the big fights. We want love to go back to America, Blair Cobbs, Alexis Roger, people like that. We want big fights, and it's no secret that Michael Mckinson will fight any of them. You know what I mean? I've got him with Vergil Ortiz. So in the meantime, I reckon we'll get a big fight in the summer. My teammate was fighting over in Italy, so I pushed to see if I could get on the card over there. And fortunate enough, I have. I didn't want to wait another 5 months without a fight. So for me, the important thing is to stay nice and warm, stay active, and then the big fights will come in the summer. So I'm fighting in an 8-rounder in Rome, March 18th.
Lovely. Okay. No opponent just yet for that one, though?
No opponent just yet. My manager, my dad's on the case at the moment. And yeah, like whoever it is, like I said, it's got to be somebody with a good record. I don't want to fight anyone with a bad record. So they're on the case just to stay nice and active, nice and warm, and stay in shape, really.
And have you set yourself a goal, Mikey, for this year? And if so, can you tell us what it is? I'm sitting very well at the moment. And Boxing News' recent rankings, I'm number 1 in the UK. You know, I think I'm 16th in the world on BoxRec. So I'm in a very good position for big fights. And you're also top 15 with 2 sanctioning bodies.
Yeah, as well. So I'm in real good position. So I think I'd love to go back to America. They're big fights over there in America. That's a goal of mine this year, to go back over there and fight. You know, like for me, I'm very, very motivated, and I'm still very, very hungry. You know, I'm not. Although I've taken a defeat, I'm not far off. I didn't really lose much positioning and things like that from a loss. So the drive's still there to reach the top, and I'm really, really confident, and I'm definitely capable of reaching there, you know. I've proved that I'm a world-class fighter, and I'll continue to prove that.
And I wanted to ask as well, is there any names that you've got at the minute on your radar, Mikey, or no one really in particular?
I think since my last fight, the main name that I want to get in the ring with is Blair Cobbs. Obviously, me competing on two of the same cards as him this year, it's a no-brainer. He called me out in March when I didn't have an opponent when Ortiz pulled out. And then he also fought on my undercard when I fought Ortiz as well. So that fight's there and it makes sense. Obviously, I've fought on 2 Golden Boy shows, so the relationship with Golden Boy's there to be able to get them fights. Alexis Rocha. I know there's a big domestic fight coming up with the 2 beneath me next week in Ekow Essuman and Chris Kongo.
This week.
This week, sorry, yeah, on the Monday now, aren't we? So I know that there's a lot of people that are going to be mentioning my name this weekend. And to be fair, it's a great fight, them two.
Yeah, that was actually going to be my next question, Mike. I was going to say, how do you see that one going?
How do I see it going? I think Essuman stops him late. Ooh. Now, Chris Kongo is the better boxer, no denying. But if Michael Mckinson, who punches like a fairy, had Chris Kongo's legs Bambi several times in the fight, somebody with Ekow Essuman's relentless pressure and will get to him at some point, I believe. But you know, I've been wrong before. I have been wrong before. But either way, it's a great fight for the boxing world in Britain. I'm looking forward to it. I know the winner could probably go ahead of me in the rankings, to be fair, because they're only the 2 beneath me. But they may want the winner, because I'm whoever wins that isn't the king of Britain until they beat me. Let's face it. So if that could down the line be like a summer showdown with me and the winner, great. But I know my worth now, so whatever's offered to me, I'm not going to take unless it benefits me. You know, I beat Chris Kongo 18 months ago for X amount. So if it's do you know what I mean? I've got a figure in my head, but yeah, I'll sit back and I'll enjoy the fight like everyone else. And then if they want to talk my name afterwards, then we can make it happen in the summer.
And the main event as well, I want to get your take on that one as well. Liam Smith, Chris Eubank Jr, a lot of mixed opinions. I've said it from the minute it got made. I cannot, for the life of me, see a knockout in that fight at all. I don't know how you see it, though.
Yeah. I don't see a knockout either, to be honest. But I can't really pick a winner. I think Liam Smith's proven at the high level. He's competed with the better caliber. He's obviously been in the ring with Canelo and things like that. I would favour Liam Smith in the fight, but it all depends on what he has actually got left. You know, it all depends on what he has actually got left. So I could maybe sit on the fence, but I'd favour Liam Smith.
Okay, narrowly to Liam Smith. And just finally, Mikey, before we let you go, if you've got any closing words, obviously we love having you on. It's always great to have you on, but if you want to wrap it up with a message to the listeners, my friend, take it away.
Yeah, you know, it's been pretty quiet in terms of media and publicity and things like that since the Ortiz fight for me. You know, so there's going to be a lot of people that are going to sleep on me and things like that, but fact of the matter is, I'm still king of Britain. I'm still number 1 in the UK for the boxing news and stuff like that. So I'm still here for big fights. Big fights will happen, all in good time. You know, it's just whatever gets presented to me next, let's do it.
There we go. Listen, Mikey, it's always a pleasure speaking with you, my man. Best of luck for March 18th in Italy, and we'll speak sometime afterwards.
Brilliant, I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Okay, now it's time for part 2 on this week's show. This part, of course, the news part of the show. We're going to start here with this one. Frank Warren has announced a card for York Hall on February the 17th, which is a Friday. Over here, we're going to see David Adelaide, the heavyweight, 10-0, getting in with Dimitro Bezus, who's actually 10-0 as well. Somebody's must go there. A couple of smaller fights on the undercard, Royston, Barney Smith, a couple of others. And also on the card, Mark Chamberlain, 11-0, gets in with Viro Lenti of Italy, who's 10-4 with a draw. So yeah, that's a small card there going down at the York Hall. That's going to be live, I think, on BT Sport. Yeah, it's going to be live on BT Sport. In other news, just one other piece of news really to mention. Unfortunately, Ivan Redkach has had to pull out of his fight with Adrian Broner. I'm not quite sure what's gone on. It seems a real messy situation because if I'm not mistaken, Ivan Redkach is angry at his promoter, Joe DeGuardia from Star Boxing. He seems to be furious at him, and he's blaming his promoter Joe for basically scuppering the fight. So that fight's not happening. Adrian Broner is still fighting though on that same date, February 25th, but he has a new opponent, Eddie. I'm sure you know. Hank Lundy steps in. Yeah, I've got a good friend of mine that's set to hopefully be on that undercard. I don't think I can break that news yet because it's not out, but yeah, shaping up to be a decent little card. But Hank Lundy, Adrian Broner, I think they were friends at one point, then enemies, then friends again. I don't know what they are at the minute, but yeah, it's a weird one, really.
Yeah, I agree. Weird one, but actually two guys at similar points, I would say, in their career. You know what I mean? Seem to be going kind of down. I mean, Broner's trying to get himself back in. Hank, I think, is at this point he's trying. I mean, each fight he gets out there, he tries to trying to make it a go. He tries to do the best he possibly can, but it looks like he's trying to cash out. I mean, I don't know, but it's a hell of an opportunity for him if he goes in and wins this fight. He may get another opportunity after. You know what I mean? So, yeah, it's a good look for him, to be able to get in there with Broner and possibly do something to revitalize his career a little. You know what I mean? I don't necessarily see that happening, but you never know. You know what I mean? At this point, like I said, Broner is not what he once was, or at least he hasn't showed that recently. So, Hank has an opportunity. He has a chance. So if I was him, I would go in there and give it my best.
Yeah, all the best to Hank. We're pulling for Hank. Yeah, it's just a shame because Hank actually had a fight penciled in with the young prospect Ernesto Mercado, and I was really looking forward to that fight, and I was actually going to have them both come on the podcast basically to do a three-way interview, and I think it would have been really, really, really good because, Hank is a fantastic trash talker, and so is Ernesto Mercado now. I mean, when I had him on the show about a year ago or whatever, he seemed like a really quiet guy. I think he was like 1-0, 2-0. All of a sudden on Instagram, you see some of the things he's been saying about Hank in the build-up, and I was like, wow, where's all this trash talk come from? I need to get him back on the show. Ernesto Mercado, of course, a really good amateur. I think he was about 290 and 10, I think his amateur record was. He was going to get in with Hank, but like I say, unfortunately that fight's fallen through because there's more money on the table for Hank to fight Adrian Broner. It makes all the sense. Can't be mad at Hank. Anyway, that is it for the news. Moving on to the preview part. Just two cards to go over, so it's going to be quite a short show, really. I'm going to start here with this one. It takes place at the Manchester Arena on Saturday. It's going to be live on DAZN in the US and in other territories, but unfortunately in the UK it's going to be on pay-per-view. It's a good card, though. I have to admit, it is a good card. In terms of there's some decent matchups on there. Yeah, we're going to get to it. Let's chop it up. Richard Riakporhe, 15-0 with 11 KOs. He gets in with former WBO Cruiserweight World Champion Krzysztof Glowacki, who's 32-3. See, I've never been massively sold on Riakporhe, because I always felt that his fights against Jack Massey and Chris Billum-Smith were really, really, really close fights, and I felt that, I felt that if he's not miles above those guys, then he's going to come unstuck as he steps up. But to his credit, he come back quite well. I think he was out the ring about 2 years after that Massey fight. So I was always a bit kind of unsure of how he'd come back. He split with Mark Tibbs, I think he was with, and then he comes back, and to be honest, he's looked good. Like I say, got in there with Duradola. I gave Duradola a chance. He was awful, Duradola, but credit to Riakporhe for getting him out of there. Then he had the win against Dion Juma, the win against Fabio Turki. So he's on a bit of a run, 3 KOs in his last 3. He gets in though with Krzysztof Glowacki, who, is a humongous step up from these guys. Like, it is a humongous step up. So I'm not confident. I think the best way of putting it is I'm not as confident as some people would be or are with this fight. I'm not saying he's not going to win. I still make him a favourite. I still think he if I was pushed to it, I'd probably say he's going to win by stoppage. But it's pretty much not to do with Riakporhe, but the fact that I think Glowacki's very much on the slide now. We forget he lost his O to Alexander Usyk back in 2016. Where's the time gone, man? That's crazy. Almost 7 years ago since that happened. It was in the late part of 2016. Since then, he put together a string of low-level wins. Actually, the win against Maxim Vlasov wasn't low-level, but he's been knocked out in 2 of his last 3 fights. Even though Usyk didn't put him away all those years ago, he has been knocked out in 3 rounds by Bradis and then in 6 rounds by Akoli. He has come back with a win again, another low-level win against Francisco Ruiz. He now gets in with Riakporhe here in Manchester. He seems like he's really at the end of his career. This will be a decent little payday, perhaps to sail off in the sunset with, but like I say, it's a massive step up for Riakporhe. He's not boxed anywhere near this level, so it wouldn't surprise me any outcome here. I wouldn't be surprised if Riakporhe knocked him out, because he's probably finished and this is his last chance of a nice payday. I wouldn't be surprised if Glowacki pulled off the upset because he's got the experience. I wouldn't be surprised if it was a knockout or if it was on points, and I also wouldn't be surprised if Riakporhe beat him on points as well. So that is a fight there that I'm just completely unsure about, but of course I favour Riakporhe. Again, if I was pushed, I think I'd probably go with Riakporhe to win by stoppage, just because Glowacki I think is pretty much at the end of his career now. But I don't know if he's finished enough where he'd lose to Riakporhe. And I'm still kind of unsure of where Riakporhe's ceiling is. So it's a really tough fight, and I'm intrigued by it. That's what I like about this card. There's some intriguing fights. One fight, though, that I'm going to move to next, which to me is not intriguing at all and is an absolute mismatch. And actually quite a disgrace, I think, from the management team of one of these fighters. Let's start with it. Former WBO heavyweight world champion, friend of the show, Joseph Parker. We had him on a couple weeks ago. 30-3 his record these days, coming off that loss, but that brilliant fight against Joe Joyce. He gets in with Jack Massey, who's 20-1. I did just say his name a couple minutes ago because I said his fight with Richard Riakporhe. His fight with Richard Riakporhe, he was down in round 10. I kind of confuse his fight with Riakporhe to Billam Smith's fight with Riakporhe, but I think in one of those fights, there was a knockdown that was given and it cost the fighter, and it shouldn't have been a knockdown. It cost the fighter of the win. So obviously Riakporhe benefited from that, but I always felt like this fighter's quite good. I think it was Jack Massey, but it could have been Chris Billam Smith. Anyway, either guy, whatever. Both those fights were really, really close. And I felt that Jack Massey, his fight with Riakporhe was particularly close. And I actually think that he might have nicked it now, if my memory serves me right. It was over 2 years ago. But anyway, Jack Massey, since losing to Riakporhe, completely disappeared off the face of the earth. I think he was fighting in car parks, like in Sheffield or something. I could be making that up. No, he was. I'm looking here. He boxed in a Sheffield car park, I think, during the pandemic. But he's been just moved terribly since that loss to Riakporhe, which, like I say, was pretty much any man's fight. And yeah, since then he's done nothing at all. And I'm saying that in terms, he's picked up a couple of belts, but I'm saying that in terms of like big fights, interesting fights, big undercards. He's not been nowhere. He's been fighting guys on small shows, really small shows, untelevised shows, and I think he's a fantastic cruiserweight. I think he's one of our best cruiserweights in the country. Really, really is. And his one loss was not a definitive loss, you know? So I think he's got a lot more to offer. However, because of the lack of opportunities it seems he was going to get at cruiserweight, he's now moving up to heavyweight and fighting Joseph Parker in his first fight at the weight. Joseph Parker, former world champion, obviously we all know that. Joseph Parker, the naturally bigger guy, big puncher, you know, he should smash Jack Massey. Absolutely smash him. And when this fight got made, I was stunned, because I think this is a dangerous, dangerous fight. And, you know, boxing's a dangerous sport at the best of times, but when we see mismatches like this is a cruiserweight who hasn't really proved that he's even the best cruiserweight in Britain, and he's getting in with a former world champion at heavyweight in Parker in his first fight at the weight. There's nothing else for me to add. It's a dangerous, dangerous mismatch, and I'm expecting Joseph Parker to spark him out. And I just hope he doesn't take tons of punishment before he goes to sleep. But I can't see any other alternative way to this fight and how it's going to play out. I don't want Jack Massey to get hurt, of course, but I just cannot see a different ending to this fight. There's no way Massey can win the fight. You know, I don't think there's any way it can go 10 rounds. It's a 10-rounder. As far as I'm aware, it's a 10-rounder. But, you know, Joseph Parker should be able to just walk through anything Massey has. Massey, again, wasn't a big puncher at cruiserweight. This is a really bad fight. I'm expecting Joseph Parker to win by knockout. From what I can see, the best place to put that bet on is 8-11 with Bet365. Which is unbelievable odds for a Joseph Parker KO. But I would say if you can get early rounds, I'd even say early rounds, probably within 6 rounds. We'll see how that ages this time next week. But hopefully Jack Massey's okay after the fight. But Joseph Parker, for him, it's like a... My only worry is he actually taking it seriously, mentally? Like, is he actually going into this fight thinking, oh, there's a risk that I could lose? Because I don't think there's any risk at all. All he's got to do is show up and he wins the fight. Elsewhere on the card, sorry for going on for too long there, but elsewhere on the card we've got Fraser Clark getting in with Kevin Espindola. Fraser Clark 4-0, 3 KOs. Kevin Espindola 7-6. Obviously they're moving Fraser Clark quite quickly in terms of how active he's been, but hopefully this one is another step in the right direction. I haven't seen Kevin Espindola fight before, I don't think. Oh no, I have. He's been in there. Oh my goodness. He's the guy that took Solomon Dacres 8 rounds, and I absolutely went in on Solomon Dacres because it was one of the most boring fights I'd seen all year. Oh my goodness. Okay, that is extremely interesting. Okay, wow. This has changed my whole perspective. He's 7-6, never been knocked out in his 6 losses, but I didn't think he would have boxed anyone at a good level. Now, Dacres isn't a big puncher, obviously, but I've noticed that he also got in with Ivan Dyko, went the distance with him over 10 rounds, and Dyko, you know, other than that time he went to points, he's 11-0 with 11 KOs. So that tells me this guy can definitely take a punch. Wow. Okay. Wow. That's incredible. I think the odds on Fraser Clark to win on points about 3-1 or something like that, if I'm not mistaken. That is extremely inviting now. Okay. All the best to Big Fraze. Moving up the card once again, Ekow Essuman 18-0 against Chris Kongo 14-1. This is an absolutely brilliant fight. In terms of 50-50s, this is the most closely matched fight on the card, I'd say. Yeah, I'd say so. Like I say, brilliant fight there at welterweight, over 12 rounds for the vacant. No vacant belts. My apologies. For the British, for the Commonwealth, for the IBF European and the WBC International Silver welterweight titles. We spoke to Mikey Mckinson a few moments ago. He said Essuman with the late KO. And if you back Essuman with the late KO from round 7 to 12, I think it's about 6 or 7 to 1, or 9 to 12 gets even bigger. It's about 11 to 1. So that would be massive if he's right there. But it is a fight that most people expect to go the distance. And if there's a stoppage from Essuman, that'd be really impressive there. So be interesting to see how that fight plays out. But I think it's a really good fight. I've spoke to a few people. I was in the gym the other day, actually, Eddie. I forgot to tell you, I was in the gym late last week. So after last week's podcast, but before this week's podcast. So I haven't spoke about it, but I was in the gym with Roy Jones Jr. the other day, which was really cool.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
So you get a chance to talk to him? You asked him, you do a live interview with him?
Nah, I don't do any live interviews, do I? I do them all over the phone. But
yeah, but you could have done one right there. You had the man right in front of you, Joe.
Nah. There'll probably be another time, but yeah, no,
it's probably better.
Huh?
Just to talk and talk to him and see what he's like, in real life without all the pressure of answering questions. Yeah, so I get it.
Yeah, it was good to be in the gym with him and watch the way he was teaching some of the guys in the gym was really, really interesting, actually. Really fun. And a few people in the gym, there were a few boxing people in the gym, not going to mention any names, but there was a lot of conversations about that Essuman and Kongo fight. It's going to be a really close one, I think. And moving up to the main event, of course, Roy Jones Jr. trains one of these men, and that man is Chris Eubank Jr. 32-2, gets in with Liam Smith 32-3 with a draw over 12 rounds at middleweight. Eddie, I mean, you know both guys, so I'm going to come to you here because you haven't done any talking yet on this week's show. How do you see it playing out, man?
Yeah, man, excellent fight, actually. It's a very interesting fight. I think I'm going to go. If I'm going to pick a winner, I would think Eubank at this point. And I think it's important for him at this point to get that win, especially against a guy like, former champion, former high-level guy, fought top-level guys. He needs to prove himself against a guy like this and prove that he can. I mean, he's already done it. I mean, don't get me wrong, he's fought, good fights in the past, but in order to get himself back in that contention, back in that area, he needs this win. And like I said, if you want to go with the second generation of rivalries with Conor Benn, you kind of want to go into that kind of thing with a win, and who wants 2 losses in a row anyway? If that was to happen, I mean, I'm not saying he's going to lose to Conor Benn, but you just wouldn't want to have that negative situation going into another big fight, especially a fight like that, where like I said, there's a little bit of animosity there, but because of the their fathers and now into the sons, you know what I mean? So but it's a good fight. I'm looking forward to it. You know what I mean? I'm going to do my very best to see this one because I've been wanting to watch. I wanted to see him fight Conor Benn, but now that he's got this fight, this is another appetizing, interesting kind of fight to watch too. So I'm looking forward to it, and may the best man win. But I think I'm going to go with Eubank at this point.
Yeah, it's a really interesting fight, and the one thing I'm most confident of in this fight is that I think it goes the distance. When I look back at both guys' recent form, and we all kind of feel that maybe Liam Smith's been around the game for so much longer, but they have actually had very near similar amount of fights. But recent form, I think probably Liam Smith is in better form recently than Chris Eubank, which seems weird because he was a world champion about 7 years ago or something like that, and since then he hasn't picked up a title again. Obviously took a couple of losses as well in that time, but I'd say he's in the better form because I'm looking back on Eubank's last few fights. Obviously beat Liam Williams last time out, had him down I think 4 times, but didn't get him out of there, which is a bit alarming. And Liam Williams on last week's show, we had him on and he revealed all. He said, look, I don't really want to. He didn't really want to say it, but then he said, it's probably just going to get out anyway. Okay, I took an elbow in sparring. I was concussed. I went into the Eubank fight concussed, hence why I was going down off of shots that really weren't even big shots. So to not get him out of there after putting him down 4 times in 12 rounds is a little bit alarming, actually. The fight before that, he beat that guy Wanik Aldijan, who was just absolutely awful. The fight before that, again, was really underwhelming when he went the distance against Marcus Morrison. We saw what happened to Marcus Morrison when he got in with other domestic middleweights like Denzel Bentley and Zach Parker, super middleweight in terms of Zach Parker. The fight before that against Matty Korobov, where it obviously ended prematurely, where Korobov got injured again. The fight before that against James DeGale, when he was absolutely finished and retired right after the fight. He didn't stop DeGale either. It's just mad. Like, his form hasn't really been there, and there's never really been that solid fight that he's had that people thought, oh, okay, this is a really tough fight, and he wins it. It's just not happened. It's not happened. Obviously, you look back at his highlight fights. Yeah, the DeGale fight, he was finished. Arthur Abraham, he was finished. George Groves, he lost to him. Billy Joe Saunders lost to him. Honestly, it's a bit deceiving, really, and he captures the minds of a lot of casual boxing fans, obviously, with the surname. Liam Smith, though, looking back at his, last time out, he had that fun fight against Hassan Mwakinyo, who he stopped in 4 rounds. The fight before that, he knocked out Jesse Vargas, which isn't an easy thing to do. He's the only man to have stopped Vargas. Mikey Garcia couldn't do it. Manny Pacquiao couldn't do it. Tim Bradley couldn't do it. Adrian Broner couldn't do it. He stopped him in 10 rounds, albeit it was up at 154. What else did he have? He had the fight before that against Anthony Fowler. He took him out in 8 rounds. The fight before that, when he lost to Kurbanov on the road, but we know that really deserved to win that fight and got jobbed. And a couple fights before that when he stopped Sam Egginton. So I think that, weirdly, he seems like he's in a really, really good place at the minute, Liam Smith. And like I say, he's got grey hair. He's had grey hair since he's been 28. He's 34 now, I think it is. And he doesn't, he doesn't look like a young man, but I feel like he's kind of fighting as if he's in his prime, and we've got to remember his losses have only come to really good fighters. One of them I've just touched on. It wasn't really a loss I'm even going to count, because I think he won and most people felt he won. It was on the road. I think he got robbed. His other 2 losses have come to Munguia on points and Canelo. Would Munguia and Canelo beat Chris Eubank Jr.? I think so. So, you can't read much into it. Now, I think that the fight goes the distance. Like I say, I'm super sure it goes the distance. I'll be stunned if either man gets a knockout. They did a gloves are off thing, and I watched that, and Liam Smith talked about a time where they sparred in the past, and apparently he hurt Eubank with a body shot. Eubank tried to say his elbow was hurting, and it seemed a bit weird. But yeah, Smith's not going to get knocked out. He's a tough guy. And Eubank, I think, is too tough, really, as well, to get knocked out. Never really seen him hurt in a fight at all. So I think it goes the distance. But the problem for me is that Eubank is very lazy at times and doesn't throw many shots in rounds. And a lot of the time does that same old stuff, that posturing, walking around the ring, all things like that. And I don't think he's very active. So I don't think that he's going to be outlanding Smith. And Smith is clever, very clever, much more clever than he looks in a boxing ring. Very good body puncher as well. And I think that Liam Smith could potentially win this fight on points, which I think is just over 3-1 odds, which is mental. I think there's some crazy value in the boxing bets this weekend. But I certainly think it goes to points. I cannot see a knockout in this fight at all. And if Eubank knocks him out, then I tell you what, I'll be taking my hat off. I'll be applauding him. It'll be a brilliant win, and it could potentially be the biggest win of his career. If he knocks him out, that for me is more impressive than beating James DeGale, a washed-up version of James DeGale, retired. So yeah, for me, it goes the distance, but I'm going to lean slightly more towards Liam Smith. And I think if Liam Smith wins the early first few rounds because Eubank's not being active enough, I think Eubank puts himself in a position where he needs a KO, and I don't think it's going to come. I think he's going to get caught even more, and he's going to, he's going to have to start taking risks. And I think Smith's good enough to, I don't want to say like, I don't see him stopping him, but I think Smith's cute enough to win wide on the cards if it came down to it. I think if he gives away an early lead, Eubank, we could be in for a wide fight for Smith. I swear, that is how I see it. But like I say, with the bookies, the most expected outcome for the bookies, the shortest price, is Eubank to win on points. That's what we think is going to happen, or what the bookies thinks is going to happen. So we'll see. But I think it goes the distance. Eddie, was you going to add anything to that, or?
No, I mean, I like what you were saying about it. It makes a lot of sense. But I guess I went right with the bookies. Not that I even knew that was the case. I had no idea. I was just thinking that, if Eubank was the winner, it would probably be by decision. Knowing that, I mean, obviously he got stopped by a body shot with Canelo, but Eubank is not Canelo. So I was leaning more toward that. I just had no idea that, because I never look at the betting odds, and maybe I should, because I could probably win myself some money. But in this case, I actually was going with the bookies and not against them, which obviously, and I didn't. And it's 3-1 for Eubank to win.
No. Liam Smith's 3-1 on points. Eubank's about 1-1 on points.
Oh, okay. I was not okay. Well, maybe that is a good bet then. Well, maybe not. What do I know about betting? I don't bet anything because I just don't trust it. But anyway, yeah. But that was it. That was just I thought that was he was like up in the betting, like the people think he was going to win by on points mostly. But whatever. What do I know? Especially on that boxing, yeah, but betting, no.
But no, it will make for a good card. Like I say, I think the Eubank and Smith fight is a good fight. It's a step in the right direction for Eubank in terms of fighting someone who is not completely washed up and fighting someone who some people think you'll lose to. So we need more of that. I mean, Roy Jones has been talking about Eubank maybe fighting Golovkin after this. It's like a lose-lose situation, isn't it? Because I think Golovkin is, at this point, definitely on the slide. I mean, Eubank, if he were to beat him, probably wouldn't even get the credit for it. But I don't know, man. He's just got to stop going after guys that are finished and at the very end of their career. And I don't think that Liam Smith is actually at the very end of his career. I think he's got a lot more to offer, and he showed it in his recent form. He's on a really, really, really impressive run. So I hope the fight lives up to the billing and to the hype that I've just injected into it. Like I say, the Essuman and Kongo fight is probably the closest fight in terms of 50-50s in my eyes, I'd say. Fraser Clark against Espindola, I'm dying to, when this podcast finishes, chuck a bet on Clark to win on points. That sounds good to me. And Joseph Parker against Jack Massey, I think, is going to be a massacre. And Richard Riakporhe against Glowacki is going to be interesting. So some decent fights there. And the final fight to mention of the preview part of the show takes place at the Casino Miami Jai Alai in Miami, Florida, USA. Over here, Eddie, we've got some American heavyweight action. We've got Jonathan Guidry, who lost his one loss came to Trevor Bryan. He boasts a record at the moment of 18-1 with 2 draws, and he gets in with former WBC heavyweight world champion, friend of the show, Mr. Bermane Stiverne, 25-5 with a draw. Bermane Stiverne still hasn't won a fight since beating Derek Rossi in November 2015. 3 knockout losses in a row to Deontay Wilder, Joe Joyce and Trevor Bryan. So both guys have lost recently to Trevor Bryan, but it's over 10 rounds there. And of course, it's a Don King Productions event, baby. And if anyone's watching it, good luck to you. I don't think I'm going to be tuned in, but it's going to be fun while it lasts. I don't think it goes a distance. I'm not entirely sure how many rounds it is. I think it might be a 10-rounder. But yeah, we're going to see about 600 pounds of heavyweights getting it on, slinging punches. And Bermane Stiverne, last time he was seen in a ring, which was almost to the day 2 years ago, I think he weighed in at about 270 or something like that. And for a guy that's only 6'2", I mean, it's inexcusable.
Yeah.
If you're a pro boxer. If you're a pro boxer.
Yeah, I mean, if you're 270 and you're 6'2" and you're a bodybuilder or a power lifter, yeah, that's great. And don't get me wrong, I mean, certain guys, who aren't necessarily that tall hold weight differently. I mean, I don't know. But yeah, that's not a good weight for him. You know what I mean? And he's proven, like you said, recently he's not been able to win recently. He's been and not only not been able to win, he's been getting stopped. And even with Derek Rossi, he almost got stopped too in that fight. So yeah, it's coming to I think it's coming to an end for him. And especially if you're going to come in fights weighing 270 and you're not even showing. It's like at least with Chris Arreola, when we've seen him recently, he's been down in weight, been some of the lowest weights of his career, actually came in and tried to get a good account of himself. Whereas you see this guy, and I'm not saying he's not trying to come in and win or he's not trying to come in and look good, but just his weight, looking at his weight and how he's going to be probably when he goes into the ring is not going to be very pleasing to the eye. And I know that's not what it's all about. It's about skills and it's about, dedication and all those other good things. And it doesn't seem that from what I'm hearing with the weight that he's going to be the best version of himself. He's already know he's not going to be because he's already past it. We've seen that. But then coming in with the, overweight, it's just not good. It's not a good look. And I mean, I wish him luck. I hope he does well, but I just don't think I don't know how much he's really coming to win with his weight being like that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what he's weighing at the moment, of course, but yeah, hasn't been seen for 2 years. I interviewed him back in March of 2020, Bermane Stiverne, and if you go back and listen to that interview, you can quite clearly hear throughout that interview, while he's answering my questions, and particularly while I'm talking, you can hear him scraping a plate with a fork the entire time. He was eating during that interview there, and he didn't really stop throughout the entire interview. So I don't know what he's been shoveling in, but hopefully he turns up in shape. But yeah, it's hard to imagine that happening at this point. It's a shame though, because at one point, Eddie, he was a good heavyweight, but it just lasted about 18 months.
Yeah, you remember Jamel? Oh wait, what's his name? Big Baby, Jarrell Miller. Yeah. Remember the video? You see the video?
Oh, in the gym.
He came in the gym. It was like, yeah, he had the WBC belt for like about a day. And I'm like, oh, man. God. It was funny, though. It was so fucking funny how it played. But theoretically, like you said, it was 18 months. It's not a long time.
That was just off the top of my head. I don't know how long he was a champion for.
If you say off the top of your head, okay, let's say it was 24 months. It's not a long time to be a champion. It's just, I'm not taking anything away from him doing it. He won the title. You know what I mean? You got to give him credit. That's something I haven't done, so I can't really say. But it's not winning the title. It's keeping it and defending it. You know what I'm saying? Not everyone can do that. Not everyone is gifted. Not everyone is the size of these normal heavyweights nowadays. So you can kind of give them a pass in certain areas. But if you win the title and you can't keep it, or you don't even try, and you come in overweight and you don't really give your best effort, it's only your fault. So you're gonna get guys like Jarrell Miller coming in and making jokes about how your heavyweight championship reign was, and almost rightfully so. I'm not gonna say that was fair, him coming into the gym doing that, but it was definitely funny, and it just goes to show like maybe you should come back and shut these people up by coming in shape, ready to fight,
train properly, and do what your job is and take care of business.
Well, we'll see how he gets on. 44 years of age now, Bermane Stiverne. But yeah, I mean, I remember when he beat Chris Arreola for the title, and it was a vacant WBC. That was, I think, just after Vitaly Klitschko said, "Yep, I'm not coming back now." And they put it on the line for him and Arreola, knocked out Arreola, which was quite impressive at that time back in 2014. Lost it in his first defense to Deontay Wilder, but at the same time, he did take this knockout machine to the distance, which no one had done at that point at all. He took him 12 rounds, didn't he, Deontay Wilder, where Deontay actually showed a bit of patience for once. And I think that was it. Once he lost the title there, he just decided, okay, that's it. And that was where we saw the decline. I don't think he was as motivated to be a two-time world champion, because come back, got dropped in the first round against Derek Rossi in his one win ever since that Wilder fight. Come back, got in with Wilder again, got folded up in one round, down 3 times. And that was it. Come over to the UK against Joe Joyce. I think got a decent little payday, got stopped there. And getting stopped by Trevor Bryan in his last fight 2 years ago, and now he's back. I mean, God, Don King just he loves his Bermane Stiverne. But anyway, we've talked about that event for far too long. In the review part of the show, we reviewed the 3 cards that we mentioned from last weekend. Then we welcomed our special guest, which was Mikey Mckinson, world-ranked welterweight. And then in part 2, we wrapped it up with the news and the preview part. The final thing for me to do is to come in with the outro, which I'll do in just a few seconds. Okay, and this wraps up episode 379 of the BoxHard Podcast. I've been your host, Joey Coastman. Eddie Chambers has been with me for the duration of the show. A huge shout out to this week's special guest, the welterweight world contender, Mr. Michael Mckinson. The biggest thanks of all, though, goes out to you, the listeners. Thanks once again for tuning in this week. If you do have a spare 2 or 3 minutes, please leave us a review on iTunes. It really does mean a great deal to myself and Eddie. That's about everything from myself, though. Enjoy the fights this weekend, which I'm sure you all will. Stay safe, enjoy the rest of your weekend, and we'll see you all again next week.